I moved to Elderwood a few days ago. I thought I needed a fresh start. I was 32, jobless after losing my graphic design gig. The plan was to rent a small apartment above a café where I could focus on my art in peace. I remember feeling excited. It felt like a new beginning. But something changed on my second night. I worked late at my desk. The café light flickered, once, then twice. I thought about a faulty bulb, but then it started pulsing, almost like it was trying to send a message. I stopped drawing and listened closely. I heard whispers. They floated up from the café, gentle but clear. I stood up and moved to the window, squinting into the dim light below. I thought I imagined it at first, but the whispers came again, just out of reach. The next few days were uneasy. The flickering continued, sometimes fading to a strange glow. I tried to brush it off. I talked to my neighbors, but they looked away, sharing worried glances. "It's just an old place," they would say, trying to sound casual. But I could see fear in their eyes. I wasn't sure what scared them more, me or whatever haunted the café below. I watched the street outside my window often. The shadows seemed to stretch longer than they should. Each night the whispers grew louder. I dreaded the flickering lights, but I couldn't look away. I told myself it was nothing, just the wind or my imagination. But still, the voices grew, calling my name. Maya. It sent chills through me. I wanted to ignore it, but it felt too real. I thought about leaving, but something kept me there. It was as if a thread tied me to that apartment. I spent hours staring at the lights, wondering if facing it would help. I began to lose track of time. Each night felt the same, filled with whispers that crept closer, drowning my thoughts. Then, one night, the light flickered differently. I stood up, heart pounding. I stared out the window and swore I saw a face in the shadows below. "Hello," I called. No reply came, just silence. I turned around, and the darkness swallowed the room. I felt cold air brush past me. That was when I heard my name, louder this time. Confusion hit me hard. Was this real? I looked back toward the window, but nothing was there. Only darkness lingered behind me. I felt the pit in my stomach twist harder, like something was watching me. I strained to see, but the shadows shifted too quickly. Then, everything went black. The last thing I felt was the chill creeping up my spine. I sat there in silence, frozen. The whispers faded away, replaced by an overwhelming void. I lost track of time in that empty space. I thought of leaving, but it wouldn't matter anymore. I was just gone. I gasped as the darkness faded. I was back in my apartment, sprawled across the floor like a broken doll. The cafe light no longer flickered ominously. It was still, glowing steadily. My heart raced as I blinked at the ceiling, trying to gather my thoughts. What had just happened?
Pushing myself off the ground, I felt a strange heaviness in the air. I thought I had been just a few moments in the void, yet my phone screen glowed, betraying a whole hour had vanished. I glanced out the window, but the calm street was unsettling. No one passed beneath my gaze. The silence echoed back the tension in my chest. I needed answers. My mind whirled with fear, the whispers still ringing in my ears. I remembered the neighbors. Maybe they knew something. I pulled on a jacket and stepped out, feeling the weight of my decision. Each footfall felt heavy against the pavement as I made my way to the neighbor's door. I knocked lightly. After a moment, the door creaked open, revealing Mrs. Holloway, her eyes wide with surprise. "Maya," she breathed, glancing towards the end of the hallway. "You're back." I blinked, unsure of the response. "Did you hear?" Her face paled, cutting me off. "You shouldn't be near that cafe, dear. It's best to stay away after dark." Confusion bubbled in my chest. "Why? What happens?" "I can't," she hesitated, glancing behind her, as if afraid of someone overhearing. "Just trust me. There are things you don't understand." "Things? What things?" "I can't talk about it here." Her hand trembled slightly as she shut the door halfway, blocking my view. "Please, just go back inside." Frustrated and almost angry, I pressed on. "But I need to know. I can't just walk away like this." A second passed before she finally relented, her voice low. "There's a reason the town keeps to itself. They don't take kindly to outsiders asking questions. You're already in danger just by being here." "Danger," I echoed. The word rattled around my head, igniting a flare of dread in me. "This cafe, it has a history." She looked around again before adding, "It's said to draw in people with secrets. Sometimes they never leave."
morning sent chills down my spine. All the connections I'd made were bound in darkness, and I was sitting at the center of it. That was when something caught my eye. A piece of paper slipped through the crack in the door, fluttering down to the floor between us. Before I could grab it, Mrs. Holloway snatched it up, her fingers shaking. "No," she gasped, but I saw the glimmer of something familiar in her hand. I knew I had to see. "What was that?" I pressed, my heart pounding in a rhythm of urgency. "I can't let you." But before she could finish, I lunged forward, yanking the paper from her grasp. My breath caught as I saw the drawing. It was one of my sketches, one that had been lost weeks ago, but the details were different this time. It wasn't my work anymore. Something else was living in it. "That can't be." Mrs. Holloway's voice broke as I held it up, fear dancing in her eyes. The whispers in my mind grew louder again, a cacophony of urgency clawing to be heard. Someone was in the cafe, someone who wanted me there, and they were not finished. I couldn't look away from the paper in my hands.
Shadows twisted and coiled within the lines of my own artwork, transforming it into something otherworldly. The unsettling details felt alive, as if they were breathing, pulling me further into their depths. "What happened to my drawing?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Mrs. Holloway stepped back, fear etching deeper lines into her face. "You need to tear it up. Get rid of it." "What? No, this is mine." "Trust me, Maya." Her urgency pierced through my concentration. I could see how terrified she was. "They don't want you to have it. You don't know what you're dealing with." The weight of her words crushed down on me. I didn't want to listen. I had spent hours on that sketch, pouring my soul into it. Yet it felt tainted now, as if I had unknowingly opened a door to something malignant. "Why do you care so much?" I pressed, even as panic bubbled in my chest. "What are you so afraid of?" She looked over her shoulder, her eyes wide with panic, before lowering her voice. "Because they'll come for you. They've already taken too much." My heart dropped. Who? People in this town aren't just quiet. They're secretive for a reason. The cafe, it attracts them, those who want to twist reality. If you don't destroy that paper, it will take you. I stepped back, grappling with the fight inside me. Every instinct screamed at me to toss it away, but a part of me, the artist inside, was reluctant. "I won't!" Her face softened, and desperation pooled in her eyes. "You don't understand, do you? They're already watching you. Those whispers you hear, they're calling for you, drawing you in. You must break the connection." "Is it too late?" "That's just it," she answered, her voice a whisper. "It might already be too late." Before I could respond, a sudden crash echoed from the hallway behind her. Mrs. Holloway's expression morphed into pure terror. "You have to go," she urged, looking back towards her door as if expecting an intruder. "Now!" Panic gripped me. I clutched the paper tighter. "What about you?" "I'll be fine," she lied, her voice shaky. "Just go. Don't come back here." With that, she pushed me toward the stairs before slamming her door shut with a finality that echoed through the quiet hallway. I sprinted back to my apartment, heart pounding. I felt an unseen force pulling me towards the cafe, a magnetic urgency that left no room for doubt. I dropped onto my bed, paper still in hand, and fought against the desire to return. As I stared at the drawing, a figure emerged from the shadows at its edge, eyes sharp and glowing on the page. The whispers grew louder, swirling in my mind like a tempest. I was not safe. I could feel it in my bones. I had to confront whatever was lurking in the cafe before it was too late, but part of me was terrified of what I might find. I took a deep breath, bracing myself. Then I heard a knock on my window. I froze, my heart racing as I turned to the window. Everything screamed at me to run, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. "No!" I shouted. "Not again!" And then everything went dark. I gasped for air as the dark swallowed me whole. My eyes were wide open, but I couldn't see anything. The silence was heavy, pressing against my ears like a thick blanket. I felt Alex's hand grip my arm tighter, a lifeline in the void. "Maya, can you hear me?" His voice sounded distant. "Yeah, I can hear you," I managed to say, but the words felt sluggish, as if they were trapped in the darkness. I stumbled forward, instinctively trying to find something solid. The shadows shifted around us, swirling like a living entity, dimly lit by a faint glow that seemed to pulse from the figure I had seen before. I strained my eyes, desperate to grasp the outline. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice barely rising above a whisper. "What did you do, Maya?" Alex said, panic flaring in his voice. "What did you draw?" I shook my head, frustration mixing with fear. "I don't know. I just wanted to create something. Something beautiful.
But my words sounded hollow, even to me. The glow intensified, and I could feel the air grow heavy with an energy both foreign and familiar. "Maya," the figure spoke, its voice echoing in my mind. It wrapped around me, chilling my bones. "I didn't mean to. I didn't even know." Suddenly, the darkness ripped away, revealing the room. The walls shimmered like liquid shadows. Everything felt distorted, as if I were looking through warped glass. But the figure remained, more defined now, stepping closer. "Your creations summon deeper things than you understand." Its voice dripped with menace, and I felt a wave of dread crash over me. "Stop! Just leave us alone!" I yelled, realizing I was shaking. I backed away, my pulse racing as I pulled Alex with me. But the creature moved unnervingly fast, bypassing the space between us in an instant. "You belong to it," it hissed, pointing at the drawings scattered on the floor. "The gift you have is a curse." "No!" I shouted again, fighting to keep my footing as panic clawed at my throat. "Stop!" Alex yelled, pulling a paper from the ground and waving it in the air like a shield. "Go back! You don't own her!" The figure halted, rage flashing in its eyes. "You dare!" Suddenly, a sharp wind surged through the room. Papers flew into the air as light flickered violently, and in an instant, the shadows began to retract. I felt the pull of the figure lessening, like a tide rolling back. "Run!" Alex shouted, and I didn't think twice. We bolted to the door, adrenaline surging as I turned the handle, but the door wouldn't budge. "Why won't it open?" I yelled, panic bubbling inside me. I pushed again, my heart pounding in my chest. "Step back," Alex yelled. He slammed his shoulder against the door with a force I hadn't expected.
It creaked, the wood straining against his weight. I could feel it shifting, the darkness at the edges retreating like a frightened animal. But the figure still loomed closer, its mouth twisting into a cruel smile. "You are mine." And then I heard it. The faint whispering returned, echoing the figure's words with a chilling harmony. "You belong to it." I pressed my palms against my ears, desperate to drown out the voices, but they grew louder. As Alex readied himself for another push, the door broke free, swinging open and revealing the night. I stumbled outside, dragging Alex with me, gasping for breath. The darkness behind us quivered, then pulsed, as if alive. Just as we reached the porch, I heard a final haunting cry from within. "This isn't over!" I glanced back in terror as the door slammed shut behind us, sealing whatever horror lay inside. "Let's go," Alex urged, and we sprinted into the night, the weight of our decisions heavy in the air. But deep down, I knew it would come for me again. I felt it in my bones, thrumming louder than my heartbeat, pulling me back to the shadows. The next day, everything felt different. The world outside seemed too bright, too normal, as if nothing had happened. But I knew it wasn't true. I barely slept, tossed and turned into the early hours of the morning. Alex stayed over, and we both sat on my bed, eyes wide, knowing that something dark was lurking just out of sight. "Do you think it's gone?" he asked, his voice low. I shook my head. "No, it's still here. I can feel it." After a long silence, he finally spoke again. "We have to figure out where it came from. There must be a reason." I glanced toward my desk, where my drawings lay scattered. Those sketches had always been a way to express myself, to spill my thoughts onto paper. But now, they felt more like a trap. I opened a sketchbook tentatively, flipping through the pages filled with swirling designs and half-formed ideas. Then I stopped. One page showed a figure, not dissimilar to what we saw last night. Shadows clung to its body, and its eyes seemed to glow. I squinted at it, feeling a chill race down my spine. "What did you draw?" Alex peered over, his breath catching. "That looks ominous." "I didn't mean to. It just happened," I muttered. Suddenly, I remembered how drawn I had been to sketch it, how alive it felt as I created it. "We need to go back," he said firmly. "We can face it together. You can't just keep hiding." My stomach twisted at the thought. But what if it's waiting for us? What if we let it out again? Alex shook his head. "Then we have to stop it. We have to figure out how to close whatever door you opened."
The idea of returning to the house sent my heart racing, but I felt more than fear. I felt a strange pull. "Fine," I said, determination leaking into my voice. "Let's go back." We left shortly after, the weight of the morning sun bearing down on us like a warning.
The closer we got, the more apprehensive I felt. The house loomed ahead, its windows dark and uninviting. I hesitated, nerves creeping in again. "Are you ready?" Alex asked, his hand resting on the door handle. "No," I said honestly. With a deep breath, we entered. The air felt stale, heavy with the memories of what happened before. Shadows danced in the corners, and the familiar whispering clawed at my mind. But we pressed forward. I moved toward my room, unease settling in my gut. The sketches lay undisturbed, the remnants of my creativity chillingly waiting. But it was what I noticed next that froze my blood. It wasn't just my sketches. A few sheets were on the floor, drawings I didn't remember making. "Alex, look," I gasped, picking one up. It was a drawing of my own face, twisted in fear, and behind me loomed a tall, dark figure. "Where did you get this?" Alex asked, turning pale. "I don't know," I cried, panic rising again in my chest. Just then, the air thickened, and the shadows around us twisted more violently, as if agitated. Then everything went dark, the room swallowed by the absence of light. "Alex!" I shouted, feeling the darkness close in. Then I heard a low growl. My heart raced. It was back. I gasped, trying to peer into the dark, but it was like pushing against a wall made of shadow. I reached for Alex, my hand brushing against his arm, the coldness of the darkness surrounding us chilling to the bone. "Stay close," I whispered, my voice trembling. I could feel the growl vibrating through the air, a living thing intent on keeping us apart. Panic flooded my veins, and I took a step back, but Alex's hand was firm on my shoulder, grounding me. "I'm here," he breathed, his voice barely audible. "Let's find a light." I fumbled through my backpack, desperate for my phone, but I froze when I felt something wet drip onto my wrist. I looked up, and just for a moment, I swore I saw two glowing eyes watching us from the far corner. "Did you see that?" I asked, my heart pounding against my ribcage. "See what?" Alex replied, tight. "Those eyes!" I pointed, wishing I could just rush forward and turn on a switch. "It's right there!" "Let's go!" His voice cut through the darkness, and together we stumbled backward, pushing against the cold walls. I didn't want to turn around, but it felt like the shadow was moving, shifting closer, eager to swallow us whole. Then, in a moment of desperation, I turned on my phone's flashlight. The beam shot into the darkness, and I expected to see emptiness, but instead, the light danced across the room, illuminating the chaos. Layers of drawings were plastered across the walls, my drawings, each one depicting the dark figure, all creeping closer and closer. "What the hell?" Alex breathed. It's everywhere," I whispered, horrified. But the shadows moved closer, and the growl intensified. It was coming from all directions now, reverberating off the walls and swelling in my ears. I scanned the room, looking for any exit, my mind racing. "Over there!" I pointed at the closet door left ajar. I could have sworn I saw the outline of something shapeless lurking behind it, but I had to take the chance. We rushed toward the closet, our footsteps heavy on the wooden floor. As I swung the door open, a rush of air swept past us. Inside lay my old sketches, crumpled and torn, swirling around as if a storm was brewing in the confined space. In the midst of it all, something was different. Among the mess, a folded piece of paper stood out. "What's that?" Alex asked, his voice urgent. I knelt and grabbed the paper, my hands unsteady. As I unfolded it, I felt a strange pulse, like the shadows around us reacted. I squinted, barely able to see the words written in a hurried scrawl. "To close the door, face what you fear most. It will not leave until you do." My breath quickened. "What does it mean?" "It means we have to confront it," Alex said, determination creeping back into his voice. "But how? Look at it!" I protested, fear clawing at me again. Before he could respond, the growl morphed into a low chuckle, echoing through the room. It crescendoed into a cacophony, mocking us, feeding on our dread. Suddenly, the shadows sprang to life, swirling around us like a whirlpool of darkness. Their movement was frantic, and I felt the push. The door was closing. "So we just stand here?" I asked, panic rising again. Then I saw it, the figure stepping out from the corner, more solid now than before.
It had no face, just a long silhouette that stretched toward us. That's when I realized I didn't just have to face my fear, I had to draw it out. And with that, shadows lunged toward us, a chilling promise of what awaited. The darkness closed in, thick and suffocating. My heart raced as shadows writhed and twisted, forming grotesque shapes that lurked just beyond the edges of the light. The last remnants of my courage fizzled out as the figure advanced, a dark silhouette with no beginning and no end. "Alex, we need to do something," I shouted, my voice shaking as I stepped backward, desperately looking for an exit. But Alex didn't move. He stood frozen, staring at the figure, an intensity in his gaze that I didn't understand. "What if we confronted together?" he suggested, his voice steady despite the chaos around us. I wasn't sure if I could do that. The growl morphed into that horrible laughter again, and the shadows seemed to close in tighter, leaving us barely any space to breathe. "We can't just wait here. It can sense us," I argued, fingers clutching my phone tightly as if it was a shield. "Look at your drawings." He pointed toward the walls, where my art captured that very silhouette. The figure became clearer under the beam of my phone, its form shifting, almost swirling like smoke. Each line I had drawn was now a thread binding it to me. "What do you mean?" I asked, confusion clouding my thoughts.
What if your drawings can help us? Maybe they're not just fear, maybe they're a way to fight, Alex urged. It hit me like a lightning bolt. I had drawn every detail of this figure. What if I could channel that knowledge? My fear began to morph, igniting a spark of defiance within me. If I can draw it out, maybe it can't hold on to me anymore. As I took a step forward, the shadows lunged, but I held my ground. "I'm not afraid of you," I shouted, my voice rising above the phenomenal growl. I raised my phone above my head, the light growing like a beacon against the oncoming darkness. Suddenly, the ground shuddered beneath us, and a roar of wind whipped through the room, tearing sketches from the walls. Paper flew everywhere, slapping against my face and swirling around us like a snowstorm. "Draw," Alex yelled, pulling out a pen from my backpack. He handed it to me, eyes wide, his faith in me reigniting my determination. I quickly knelt down, scribbling furiously on the floor, my heart racing. I drew a larger, fiercer version of the dark figure, one that embodied my response to the fear I felt. The shadows paused, as if contemplating my declaration. The moment the last line connected, a blinding flash erupted from my drawing, and the surreal figure I had created surged forward to challenge the one lurking in the darkness. The two collided, creating shockwaves that rattled the room, erupting in a wave of light and sound. "Keep going," Alex shouted, leaning closer. I continued, adding details, making it more vivid, until what I had drawn became center stage. The shadows paused, hesitating before rushing to engulf the drawing, but the light pushed back with the intensity of a star, fighting against the creeping blackness. Can it work both ways? I wondered aloud, fear mixed with hope. If I could manipulate the fear I was feeling, could I turn it into something powerful enough to break the hold of this darkness? "That's it! You can do this!" Alex's encouragement fueled my courage. But as I looked back at the original figure, it twisted, and I felt a cold breath against my neck. I turned, breathless, and in that fleeting moment, saw a new detail on its silhouette, a hint of familiarity, a shadow of someone I knew. "Wait, no," I whispered, my heart sinking. This was more than just a phantasm. I needed to find out who or what was behind this, and I suddenly realized that confronting this would demand more than I was prepared to give. Then, amidst the chaos, the laughter grew louder. It was not mocking anymore. Now it felt personal. I was running out of time. The drawing flickered bright against the darkness, but my heart raced for a different reason now. I was confronted by something more unsettling than the figure itself, a haunting familiarity in that silhouette. I could hardly focus while the shadows rallied around my fierce creation, battling fiercely as if they were separate entities. "Who is it?" I gasped, struggling to keep my composure under the weight of my realization. My fingers trembled, a mix of adrenaline and dread. I needed to pull every thought together to understand what I was seeing. Alex's eyebrows knitted with concern as he continued to cheer me on, but the louder crackling from the swirling shadows drowned him out. The intensity in the room was suffocating. It felt like watching a storm rear its ugly head after days of oppressive calm. I could feel the familiar figure in the darkness, like a ghost from my past rising up against me. "That darkness," I muttered, eyes widening in disbelief. It's someone I know. I remember the stories, the disappearances, the whispers behind closed doors. The town brushed off the strange happenings as nothing, but deep down I could feel the truth tugging at the corners of my mind. "Focus!" Alex shouted, snapping me back to reality. "You have to finish the drawing." Just then, my creation hit the dark figure with a flash of light, scattering shadows like leaves caught in a whirlwind.
An eerie silence wrapped around us momentarily, a thick blanket that amplified the tension. But before I could breathe, the shadows congealed again, and I saw it. That shape, it twisted again, and I felt my chest tighten as recognition raced through me. My heart dropped. It was someone I loved. "Lily," I whispered, my voice barely escaping my throat. It couldn't be. My sister, lost for years. How had the darkness taken her form? A rush of memories flooded me, fragments of laughter and warmth that I had buried under layers of pain. Now they clawed their way back to the surface, desperate for sunlight. Is it really her? I wondered. Would that mean my drawings and their power were somehow linked to this twisted version of my sister? Fear gripped me. Can I save her? "Get your head in the game," Alex yelled again, but I could barely concentrate. The drawing I had made flickered as my focus wavered. The shadows sensed my doubt, coming closer, eager to consume me. My sister's figure blended into the fog, her features hazy, like smoke trying to take form. I had to get it together. "No," I shouted. "I won't let you." In a sudden burst of desperation, I picked up my pen again, determined to draw a new path for Lily. I needed to fight not just for myself, but for her too. I had to win this battle. We had to reclaim her from the darkness. As I drew, the shadows bristled, sensing my determination. I felt the energy surge between my drawing and the shadows as I poured every ounce of my spirit into the art. But just when I thought I gained the upper hand, I heard that chilling laughter again, wrapping around me like ice. And then it hit me, a sudden realization so powerful it stopped me mid-stroke. What if I wasn't just fighting for my sister? What if this darkness wanted to use me too? In that instant of clarity, the shadows surged forward, overpowering the light. Everything went dark.
I gasped as the silence returned, thick and suffocating, plunging me into the abyss once more. My heart thundered in my chest as I fumbled to find Alex. "Where are you?" I called out, straining to hear him over the rising cacophony of whispers that curled around me, full of urgency and menace. "Maya!" His voice cut through the dark like a lifeline. I felt a jolt of relief, though it mingled with terror at the unseen threat closing in. "We're not at the end yet." Drawing in a breath, I focused, willing the shadows to yield. They flickered and wavered, feeling almost sentient as they twisted around me. Connecting with the fear that coursed through me wasn't easy. It was overwhelming, suffocating. I thought of my sister, of the joy she brought, and the shadows that had taken her from us. I pulled on that pain, giving it form as I envisioned the drawing I wanted to create. "Stop hiding!" I shouted, my voice shaky but filled with determination. "You'll never take me!" I reached for my phone, illuminating the darkness around us. And there, before me, the shadow figure paused, energy wavering like a mirage. Drawing fervently onto the floor, I infused the rising panic within me into each stroke. Features began to shape, turning from mere chaos to something that felt powerful. I drew strength from the moments I cherished with Lily, her laughter, her smile, and poured it into this creation. I wouldn't just defend myself. I would fight to reclaim her. The dark figure snarled, its form retracting as if my art held some sway, and I fed on that. "You cannot have her!" I shouted again, adding the last details to my drawing. It was incomplete, but the aura surrounding it thrummed with a palpable energy. "I summon you!" I called, commanding the darkness to reveal its true self. A shadowy tendril shot toward me, but where it would have consumed me, it faltered as the light from my creation surged. Alex stood wide-eyed, his resolve shining, his voice unwavering. "Keep going!" The shadows recoiled, and I seized the moment, pushing my drawing to evolve. With every line, I felt tethered, channeling fear into defiance. Shapes morphed, enveloping the figure in light and life. The shadows screeched, hissing around me, yearning to engulf everything in their grasp. Suddenly, I stepped forward, drawn deeper into the battle. I looked into the essence of the figure. It transformed, twisting like smoke, while revealing familiar features. "Lily!" I shouted. "I will find you!" The shadows answered with a wail that vibrated through the room, echoing my memories. Chatter at family gatherings, laughter over shared meals, fragments of light that once filled my heart. I felt them flutter back, and as more rush memories flooded my being, each one imbued my drawing with strength. The growl faded, and I could see her now, not just as a shadow, but a flicker of the sister I cherished. "Maya." The voice was soft, but imbued with the icy grip of fear. "No!"
I urged, struggling against the dark mass. "I won't let it take you."
In a surge of clarity, I planted my feet and gripped the pen tighter, determined to take control. "You can't have her," I cried, and in a whirlwind of desperation, I sketched a portal that glimmered with radiant energy, an opening that would not just trap the darkness, but reveal my light. The shadows shifted, light spilling, blurring the edges as they howled, pulling away in fear. "You cannot escape," they threatened, but each word thinned, acceptance resonating in their menacing chant. "I can summon whatever I create," I roared with newfound confidence. The dimensions of the drawing pulsed, as if they breathed alongside me, rooting my spell and determination. A burst of light shielded me as I completed the drawing. The lines sharpened, constantly shifting and evolving. It sprang to life, vibrant and awe-inspiring, so full of emotion. In that moment, everything snapped back. The room spun, shadows and light swirling, and I felt Alex's hand grip mine. "Now, Maya, now!" With every ounce of strength, I unleashed the drawing into the void, and it exploded with warmth, engulfing the dark mass. Whispers spiraled tighter. A storm of energy echoed as things shifted, twisting and changing. But then the shadow shrieked, suspended between dimensions, its essence fractured by light and sound. The darkness howled, a guttural, belligerent cry, as it fragmented, disbanding into wisps, unraveling the chains that pulled at my spirit. With a final blink, I screamed out, "You have no hold on us!" In the eye of the storm, as that power churned, I caught a fleeting glimpse of Lily, real and radiant, her face breaking through the fog. "Maya!" she cried, arms extended. I felt the pull of love, the bonds we'd crafted transcending the chaos. Then, just as sudden as it began, the darkness dissolved, light poured in, filling the air with warmth. The shadows retreated, leaving the room shrouded in brilliance. Panting, I blinked at Alex, and a weight lifted from my chest. I wasn't fractured. I was whole. The darkness had dissipated, swallowed by the power of my connection to those I loved the most. Yet, as the echoes faded, the air felt heavier with an intention. Was it truly over? I wondered, uncertain. Could it ever be? I glanced at the remnants of sketches lining the walls amidst the brightening glow. While I felt the overwhelming sense of relief, a tug of recognition remained, whispers that would linger, reminding me that shadows, even when cast aside, could return. Perhaps, in some ways, they'd always be with me, waiting just beneath the surface. As we stood in the aftermath, filled with uncertainty about tomorrow, I found strength in my resolve. I had faced the darkness and survived, but questions still swirled. Would I be able to channel the shadows, and would the whispers return? "Let's go," Alex urged gently, his voice steady against the quiet that followed.
Reluctantly, we stepped toward the door, the light illuminating our path forward. And though the café behind us felt free of menace, a lingering unease clawed at my thoughts. Whatever I had unleashed, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Whatever darkness existed in Elderwood had merely found a way to slip through cracks, and I could still feel it echoing inside me. I held Alex's hand tightly, but as we stepped outside into the fading sun, I couldn't shake the question. Even if we had turned the page, what chapter lay ahead?